The stars shimmered like cold diamonds in the vast blackness of space. On the edge of a quiet, uncharted galaxy, a single ship glided silently. Its hull was smooth and dark, reflecting distant suns like scattered mirrors. Inside, the crew, tall, sharp-eyed beings with pale skin and pointed ears, watched the star charts intently. They were hunters, experts in tracking and conquering, traveling from one planet to another in search of prey. Target in range, one of them hissed, voice low and calculating. The blue planet. It hung below them, a swirling marble of oceans and green continents. From orbit, it seemed peaceful, almost fragile. Yet, the hunters saw opportunity, not serenity. They had hunted countless worlds, leaving fear and ruin behind. But something about this planet felt different. Their leader, Kale, stepped forward. His eyes, dark and piercing, scanned the glowing continents. Sensors show intelligent life. Advanced technology, but still primitive in war. This world will fall quickly. No resistance. No surprises, he said, a cruel smile curling at the corner of his mouth. Below, the planet's inhabitants went about their lives, unaware. Cities sparkled like jewels in the sunlight. People moved with purpose, some working, some playing, others simply watching the skies, never imagining the shadow that was about to fall over them. Kale activated the descent protocol. The ship shuddered as its engines flared, slicing through the thin atmosphere. The hunters' hearts thrummed with excitement. They were apex predators in every galaxy they had visited, except for this quiet blue world. They had expected an easy hunt. As they neared the surface, a strange hum echoed through the ship, subtle but persistent. The crew froze. Kale frowned, scanning the instruments. "What is that?" he asked, irritation creeping into his tone. It's coming from the planet," said Lyra, the ship's navigator. "I've never sensed anything like this. It's alive. Different. Not hostile, but aware." Kale waved off her concern. "Nonsense. All planets have energy signatures. Focus on the mission. This will be an easy conquest. Prepare the landing party." The hunters suited up, their armor dark and sleek, weapons humming with power. They exited the ship in silence, gliding down to the planet's surface. The air was different here, thicker, rich with an energy they couldn't name. Birds with metallic feathers chirped from strange trees. Rivers glistened unnaturally, reflecting the sky with perfect clarity. Kale laughed softly. "Primitive beauty. Soon, it will all belong to us." They moved through the forests, their steps silent, precise. The creatures of this world scuttled and shrieked, sensing danger but too small to matter. The hunters didn't notice. Their eyes were fixed on the faint glimmer of human settlements in the distance. Hours passed. The humans went about their lives, completely unaware of the hunters' approach. Children played near a riverbank, laughter ringing like bells. Farmers tended to fields, unaware of the sharp eyes tracking them from the shadows. Kale and his team observed from a hilltop, taking in the simplicity of their prey. Then, the air changed. The humming that had followed them from orbit grew louder, more insistent. Lyra paused, her hand trembling slightly as she reached for her communicator. "Leader, I think the planet knows we are here," she whispered. Kale's eyes narrowed. "Nonsense," he said sharply. "This is fear talking. Stay focused." But even as he spoke, the ground beneath them seemed to vibrate. The sky darkened, not with clouds, but with a shimmer of energy, like a ripple across reality itself. The hunters tensed, weapons raised. For the first time in their lives, a chill of unease crept into their hearts. And then, a sound came from the forest, soft at first, almost melodic. But it carried a weight, a warning. The humans had noticed it too. From the villages below, people paused, looking around with confusion and fear. The laughter of children died in their throats. Even the birds fell silent, sensing the shift. Kale clenched his fists. "It's just a trick of nature," he muttered. "Move forward." Yet the feeling would not be shaken. Something watched them. something that did not belong to the natural order they had known. Something alive, aware, and, terrifyingly, powerful. The hunters advanced, but with each step, the forest seemed to grow denser, more alive, as if the planet itself resisted. Shadows twisted unnaturally, and strange patterns appeared in the leaves. A sudden gust of wind carried whispers, unintelligible, yet echoing deep in their minds. Fear, the hunters realized, was not in the humans below. It was in the air, in the ground, in everything around them. Kale swallowed, trying to suppress it. Hunters were not supposed to feel fear. Yet, deep down, a tiny spark of doubt flickered. They were experienced, deadly, unstoppable, but something told him this hunt would not be like any other. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long, eerie shadows. Lights began to flicker in the distant villages, and a soft, blue glow emanated from the rivers. The humming grew louder, more insistent, and then, silence. The humans had gone quiet, too. It was as if the planet itself held its breath. Kale raised his weapon, signaling the team to move forward. "Prepare for engagement," he said. "We finish this quickly, as we always do." But in that moment he felt it, something deep, ancient, and watching. Something that would challenge everything he had ever known about hunting, and fear. The arrival had begun. Night had fully fallen over the planet. Shadows stretched across the forests and villages, and the hunters moved cautiously, their senses sharp, alert for any sign of resistance. Yet, despite the stillness, Kale couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. "Leader," Lyra whispered, her voice tight with unease. "The humans. They are disappearing." Kale glanced at her, annoyance flashing in his eyes. "Disappearances happen at night. Fear does that. Stay focused. Nothing escapes our sight." They advanced toward the nearest village, weapons ready. From above, the rivers reflected the moonlight like silver ribbons. Trees swayed as if whispering secrets. Every sound, the rustle of leaves, the crack of a branch, made the hunters tense. As they reached the edge of the village, Kale motioned for silence. The houses were simple, constructed from stone and wood. Smoke rose lazily from chimneys, and faint flickers of light danced in the windows. But the streets were empty. Not a single human could be seen. "Where did they go?" murmured Kale, unease creeping into his tone. Before Lyra could answer, a sudden sound ripped through the air, a sharp, echoing scream. It came from the far side of the village. The hunters spun around, weapons raised, scanning the darkness. The scream repeated, this time a chorus, as if hundreds of voices cried in unison, yet no figure appeared. Kale's heart, accustomed to hunting, felt a flicker of doubt. "Humans don't scream like that," he muttered. "They are clever, but not this." A strange, flickering light appeared in the village square. The hunters hesitated, eyes narrowing. It was blue, almost ethereal, swirling in patterns that defied logic. The air around it shimmered, and the familiar humming returned, louder than before. It wasn't coming from the humans. It came from the planet itself. Then, the humans appeared, not in the streets, but rising from the ground, from the shadows themselves. They moved silently, perfectly coordinated, surrounding the hunters without a single sound. Their eyes glowed faintly, reflecting the strange blue light. Kale raised his weapon, yelling, "Attack!" The humans didn't flinch. They didn't scream. Instead, they stopped at a precise distance, forming a circle around the hunters. The energy in the air thickened. Kale's chest tightened. He had faced countless species, but never like this. These humans radiated something powerful. Something the hunters had never encountered. "Leader," Lyra whispered, voice trembling. "They're not afraid. They are stronger than they should be." Kale's hands shook slightly, though he tried to hide it. "Focus. Fire, if necessary." Before he could act, the ground beneath him rippled. Kale stumbled, surprised, as if invisible hands pushed him back. Lyra and the other hunters struggled to maintain balance. The humans didn't move a muscle, yet the hunters were thrown into chaos. What is this? Kale growled, regaining his footing. A voice echoed, not from a human, but from the air itself. It was calm, deep, and commanding. You are not welcome here. The hunters froze. The words weren't spoken aloud, yet they resonated in their minds, filling them with a sense of dread and awe. Kale gritted his teeth. He had never encountered telepathy before, and certainly not one that could dominate the mind. Lyra stepped forward, her armor clinking softly. "Leader, we should retreat," she said quietly. "This planet, it's alive. It's protecting them." Kale shook his head. "Retreat is for the weak. We are hunters. Fear does not control us." But even as he spoke, doubt gnawed at him. The humans didn't look like warriors. They didn't carry powerful weapons. Yet their presence alone made him feel small, inadequate. Their calm defiance was more dangerous than any weapon he had ever faced. One of the humans stepped forward, a woman with short, dark hair and piercing eyes. She raised her hand, and instantly, the blue energy swirled around her, forming shapes and patterns in the air. The hunters felt their minds press against invisible walls, unable to move, think clearly, or even breathe without effort. Kale roared in frustration, swinging his weapon, but it passed through the energy like water through a net. Every attempt to strike was futile. The hunters, usually unstoppable predators, were suddenly powerless. "Impossible," muttered Kale, voice low and bitter. "They are nothing. How can this be?" The woman's eyes locked on his. "You have underestimated us," she said calmly. "You came thinking to hunt, but here, you will learn fear." Another ripple of energy burst outward. Trees bent, stones lifted, and the hunters were thrown backward. The ground quaked beneath them. Kale struggled to rise, his pride wounded more than his body. For the first time, he truly felt fear. Not the fear of death, but the fear of being irrelevant, of being outmatched by a species he had assumed would be weak. The blue glow intensified, surrounding the humans like a living shield. Kale's team looked at each other, panic starting to show in their eyes. They had faced worlds in chaos, predators in rage, even civil wars that destroyed entire planets, but nothing like this. Nothing that could challenge their supremacy so completely without even touching them. Kale's mind raced. We need a plan," he whispered to Lyra. "We can't fight them like this. Not yet." The humans remained calm, almost serene, as if they knew every thought before it came. The village, once a place of quiet, simple life, had transformed into a fortress powered by something beyond comprehension. The hunters, so used to fear in others, were beginning to understand that they were not the apex predators here. The first encounter had ended, not with a battle, but with a revelation. Humanity, simple, fragile, yet defiant and powerful, had shown them a truth that no hunter wanted to admit. Sometimes, the hunted was the most dangerous of all. Kale's eyes glinted in the darkness. "This is far from over," he muttered. "We will learn their weaknesses, and then, we will strike." But deep down, in the quiet corners of his mind, a question lingered. Could they strike at all? The humans had arrived in their own way, and Kale realized that the next battle would not just test strength. It would test fear, resilience, and the very spirit of what it meant to be human. The night was silent again, but the hunters knew one truth: they were not in control here. Not yet. The hunters retreated to the edge of the forest, regrouping under the pale light of the twin moons. Kale's chest heaved, anger and disbelief battling with his pride. For the first time in his long career, he had faced an enemy that didn't fear him, and that shook him to his core. "We underestimated them," Kale admitted, voice low, almost bitter. "They are not weak. They are something else." Lyra shook her head, her eyes wide. "Leader, it's more than strength. They think, they anticipate, they adapt. And the planet itself." "Enough," Kale snapped. "We are hunters. We adapt, we learn. Fear may have touched us once, but it will not last. We strike at dawn." The hunters spent the night studying the village from hidden positions. They watched the humans move with precision, communicating silently, often disappearing only to reappear somewhere else. There were no guards, no weapons seen, yet the humans had defended themselves easily the night before. Every attempt to approach closer had been repelled by the invisible blue energy that seemed to flow from the villagers themselves. Kale's mind raced. We must understand their power. We cannot simply charge and expect victory. Every strike must be perfect. Every move calculated. This is a hunt unlike any other. Lyra frowned. Leader, it's not just a hunt anymore. They are fighting back in ways we don't understand. Even their fearlessness feels unnatural. They are stronger than they appear. Kale clenched his fists. Then we find a weakness. Every creature has one. Every world has one. We just need time to see it. As the first light of dawn crept across the horizon, the hunters prepared to advance. Kale led the team, weapons drawn but wary. Every step they took seemed heavier than the last. The forest, alive and whispering, resisted them, almost aware of their presence. Branches seemed to move just to block their path. Leaves rustled in strange patterns, as though warning the humans below. When they finally reached the outskirts of the village, Kale raised his hand. "Hold," he commanded. "Watch and wait. Let them make the first move." The humans appeared almost immediately. A small group of them stepped into view, calm and composed. Their eyes glowed faintly, and the same blue energy shimmered around them. Yet this time, they didn't attack. Instead, they spread out in a coordinated pattern, surrounding the hunters. Kale felt a strange tightening in his chest. He had faced armies, beasts, and monsters from the deadliest worlds, but nothing had prepared him for the precision and fearlessness of these humans. They moved like a single entity, reacting before the hunters could fully decide their own actions. One human, a tall man with broad shoulders, lifted his hand. A wave of blue energy surged forward, striking the hunters with invisible force. They stumbled backward, crashing into trees and rocks. Kale roared in frustration, swinging his weapon, but the man's energy held firm. The hunters felt their movements slow, as though the world itself resisted them. "This is impossible," shouted one of the hunters. "They are not armed. How can they do this?" Kale gritted his teeth. "They are not using weapons. Their strength, it comes from their minds. And the planet. We are on their ground. Every advantage is theirs." The hunters regrouped, circling each other for protection. Kale's mind raced. "We must divide them. Draw them out. Isolate one, and the rest will weaken." He signaled a small team to flank the humans, moving quietly through the forest. But before they could act, the earth itself shifted. Roots snaked up like living chains, twisting around hunters' legs, pulling them down. Rocks rolled with precise timing, blocking every path of escape. The humans watched calmly, their blue energy pulsating in rhythm with the hunters' struggle. Lyra shouted, struggling to free herself. "Leader, we can't fight them like this. The planet itself is part of their defense." Kale's eyes burned with fury. "Then we must become smarter. Faster. We adapt, or we die." The hunters struck back, using every trick they knew. Blasts of energy from their weapons tore through trees, creating chaos, yet the humans moved through it unharmed. Every attack that should have caused fear, pain, or injury was absorbed, avoided, or countered. The hunters were learning that the human strength wasn't just power, it was strategy, coordination, and an almost supernatural connection with the planet. Hours passed in a tense stalemate. Neither side was willing to retreat, yet the hunters were exhausted. Kale wiped sweat from his brow. "We fight differently. We are not used to this. But we will find a weakness." A sudden scream cut through the forest. Kale looked up to see one of his hunters thrown high into the air by an invisible force, landing heavily with a cracked rib. Another hunter disappeared behind a wall of blue energy, reappearing moments later, disoriented and shaken. Fear, a feeling Kale had never experienced on hunts, crept into their minds. Kale felt it too. It gnawed at him, a subtle, dangerous thing. Fear of failure. Fear of being outsmarted. Fear of death at the hands of creatures he had assumed were weak. He clenched his fists. Enough, he growled. We regroup. Tonight, we plan differently. Tomorrow, the hunt continues. And we will win. But even as he said it, a whisper echoed in his mind, a calm, commanding voice from the humans. You cannot control this world. You cannot control us. Kale froze. The hunters, once proud, unstoppable, realized a hard truth. They were no longer the apex predators. They were intruders in a land that refused to bow. The hunt had begun. But the prey had become something far more dangerous than the hunters ever imagined. Night had fallen again, but this time the hunters were not the only ones moving. The humans, calm and silent, emerged from hidden places, blending seamlessly with the shadows. They had observed the hunters, learned their patterns, and now they were ready. Kale crouched behind a shattered tree, his armor dented, his pride wounded. We underestimated them, he muttered, scanning the forest. Every movement we make, they predict it. Lyra nodded. Leader, it's more than prediction. They are controlling the environment itself. Trees, rocks, even the air seems to resist us. Kale gritted his teeth. Then we adapt. We hunt smarter. Tonight, we strike strategically. Divide and conquer. But before the hunters could move, a series of soft thuds echoed from all directions. Small objects, stones, sticks, even broken branches, began flying through the air, not randomly, but with precise aim. One hunter barely dodged a rock that shattered a tree trunk inches away from him. Kale's eyes narrowed. Energy, controlled by them. They are using the planet as a weapon. From the shadows, the humans appeared, moving faster and more coordinated than any force Kale had ever faced. Blue energy shimmered around them, bending light, distorting reality. They didn't run, they advanced strategically, forcing the hunters into narrow spaces, cutting off escape routes. One human stepped forward, a young man with a calm expression and eyes that seemed to see through everything. He raised his hand, and roots shot up from the ground, wrapping around a hunter's legs and pinning him to the earth. Another hunter tried to blast through with his weapon, but the energy shield around the humans absorbed the attack effortlessly. Kale felt a creeping panic, something he had never felt in centuries of hunting. We are losing control. Regroup. Fall back. But retreat was not easy. The humans anticipated it, guiding the hunters with invisible hands, forcing them into traps without firing a single shot. Every move the hunters made was countered, every thought anticipated. Lyra whispered urgently, Leader, we are not dealing with a normal species. Their connection, with each other and the planet, it's almost like they are one mind. We can't fight them directly. Kale's jaw tightened. He hated admitting weakness, but the truth was unavoidable. Then we fight differently. We must separate them. Force one away from the others and maybe, just maybe, we can gain the upper hand. He signaled a small team to flank the humans, attempting to isolate a few. But as they moved, the forest shifted. Trees bent to block their path, the ground rose beneath their feet, and rivers seemed to slow their movement. The humans never touched them, yet the hunters felt trapped, helpless. Suddenly, a burst of blue light exploded nearby. One of the hunters screamed as the energy lifted him into the air, spinning him around before dropping him hard. The others scrambled, firing blindly, but the humans remained calm, almost serene, guiding every attack away. Kale's voice roared with fury. Enough. Focus. We cannot panic. Yet even as he shouted, he knew the truth. They were being outmatched, outsmarted, and overpowered in ways they could barely understand. The humans didn't need weapons or armor. Their minds, their unity, and their bond with the planet gave them an advantage no hunter had ever seen. One human advanced toward Kale himself, blue energy crackling lightly around her. She spoke, not aloud, but directly into his mind. You thought this would be easy. You were wrong. Kale stumbled, nearly falling, shaken by the force of her presence. Rage and fear battled within him. Hunters were predators, killers, apex beings in every corner of the galaxy. But here, they felt small. Vulnerable. You think you can defeat us? The human's voice continued, calm and unyielding. You are intruders. You are nothing here. Kale clenched his fists, struggling to push back the fear that gnawed at him. We will find your weakness, he growled, teeth bared. No species is unbeatable. But as he spoke, a realization settled like ice in his chest. Perhaps some species were different. Perhaps some worlds didn't bend to conquest. These humans, they were not like the others. They were stronger than he could have imagined, smarter, faster, and united in a way that defied logic. The humans advanced in a pattern, forcing the hunters toward a narrow canyon. Trees bent, rocks shifted, and the ground itself seemed alive. One hunter cried out as a boulder trapped him, while another was caught in a tangle of roots that lifted him off the ground. Panic spread among the hunters, the first real panic Kale had seen in centuries. Kale knew they had to act. He signaled Lyra to flank, trying to create a distraction, but even their best tactics failed. The humans countered before the hunters could strike. Every plan was anticipated. Every move neutralized. Finally, Kale stood in the center of the chaos, breathing heavily. He looked around at his team, wounded, exhausted, afraid. The humans approached, blue energy flowing around them like liquid light. Kale's mind raced. This is no longer a hunt. This is survival. The humans stopped at a precise distance, forming a circle around the hunters. The energy pulsed in rhythm with the hunters' racing hearts. Kale felt it again, that strange, deep fear that had no name. Not the fear of death, but the fear of being outmatched, outsmarted, outlived. For the first time in his life, Kale realized that being a hunter was not enough. Strength alone could not win here. They were facing a species that refused to be prey, a species that could turn the hunter into the hunted. The humans stepped closer, calm, fearless, and united. Their leader's eyes met Kale's. You will learn respect, or you will fall. The hunters braced themselves. The battle was far from over, but the scales had shifted. Humanity had shown its true strength, and Kale knew one thing for certain. The next move would decide who truly dominated this planet. Dawn broke over the forest, casting a pale light across the battlefield. The hunters, bruised, battered, and weary, regrouped near a cliff edge overlooking the village. Their pride, once unshakable, was fractured. Kale paced, his mind racing. They are stronger than we thought, Lyra admitted, glancing at the distant humans. Stronger than anything we've faced before. Kale's jaw tightened. We can't fight them as we always do. We need a new plan. A better plan. But even as he spoke, the humans were already moving. Not in defense, but offense. From the village, groups emerged, silently and swiftly, their blue energy flaring in precise bursts. Unlike before, they didn't wait for the hunters to attack. They were hunting now. Kale noticed a pattern. The humans moved with intelligence beyond instinct. They coordinated their attacks, using the terrain, the forest, and even the rivers to guide and trap the hunters. Rocks shifted under invisible pressure, branches blocked paths, and roots formed cages, capturing one hunter after another. They've turned the game, Kale muttered. We were hunting. Now, we're prey. Lyra swallowed hard. And they're enjoying it. The first hunter fell, caught in a web of energy roots, lifted high into the air and slammed into a tree. Another tried to fight back, firing his weapon, but the blue energy surrounding the humans absorbed every blast, dispersing it harmlessly into the ground. Kale's blood ran cold. These humans weren't just strong, they were clever, calculating, and merciless in their precision. For the first time, he understood what it meant to underestimate a species. One human, a tall woman with glowing eyes, stepped forward. Her blue energy pulsed rhythmically, shaping the battlefield around her. She raised her hand, and the hunters felt the ground beneath their feet shift violently. Rocks and dirt rose and fell like waves, knocking them off balance. Kale roared in frustration. "Hold! Don't let them split us!" But the humans anticipated it. They moved like shadows, separating the hunters, isolating them from one another. Each hunter found themselves facing invisible barriers, fighting not just enemies, but the terrain itself. The planet had become a weapon in the hands of its defenders. Lyra gasped. "Leader, we can't just survive. We have to outsmart them. That's the only way." Kale's eyes narrowed. "Then we adapt. Look for patterns. Predict their moves. If we can turn their energy against them, maybe we can strike back." The hunters launched a coordinated attack, focusing their fire on a single human, hoping to break the circle. But the humans responded instantly. Blue energy flared, and the hunters' attacks rebounded, striking the ground and sending debris flying. The humans advanced steadily, unflinching, their calm defiance unnerving even the most battle-hardened hunters. Kale felt fear creeping into his mind again, a cold, sharp edge he had never experienced. "This is no ordinary hunt," he muttered. "They are something else, something evolved." Suddenly, a scream echoed across the battlefield. One of the hunters had been caught in a surge of energy, lifted, and thrown across the clearing. Another hunter tried to help, but was trapped by roots that rose like serpents from the ground. Panic spread among the hunters, their usual confidence shattered. The humans pressed their advantage. With synchronized precision, they funneled the hunters toward a narrow gorge. Energy walls rose on either side, forcing them into a confined space. Kale realized too late that the humans had set a trap. "This is it," he whispered, his pride and ego battling with raw survival instinct. "We are cornered." Lyra looked at him, eyes wide. "Leader, what do we do?" Kale took a deep breath. "We survive. That's all. We fight. But we fight smart. Use their strength against them." The hunters attempted a desperate maneuver, splitting into small teams to confuse the humans. Yet the humans anticipated every move, guiding the hunters into areas where the energy of the planet itself could immobilize them. Trees bent to block escape routes, rocks rolled with deadly precision, and roots formed walls and cages. Kale found himself face to face with the young man who had led the humans before. Their eyes locked, and Kale felt the full weight of the humans' power. Calm, fearless, and controlled. He raised his weapon, but before he could act, the young man's hand moved slightly, and Kale was thrown back by an invisible force, crashing into the gorge wall. Lyra and the remaining hunters tried to regroup, but the humans advanced like waves, relentless, precise, and unstoppable. The hunters had always been apex predators, but here, they realized they were outmatched. Outthought. Outmaneuvered. Outclassed. Kale struggled to rise, anger burning in his chest. "We adapt, we survive, we will strike again," he growled. "This is not the end." But even as he spoke, he knew the truth. Humanity had turned the tide. They had taken the hunters' pride and thrown it back at them, showing strength, unity, and intelligence beyond anything the hunters had ever faced. The humans paused, forming a circle around the hunters. Blue energy shimmered, pulsing like a heartbeat. Kale felt the fear deep in his bones, a recognition that he had never expected. They were no longer the hunters here. The turning point had arrived. Humanity was no longer hiding. They were striking back, and the hunters, proud, deadly, and feared across galaxies, were finally learning the price of underestimating a species that refused to be prey. Kale looked around at his team, injured, shaken, but still alive. He clenched his fists. The battle was far from over. But the hunters now understood one terrifying truth. On this planet, humanity had the advantage. And the next move would decide everything. The forest was silent, yet tense. The hunters, battered and disoriented, gathered on a narrow plateau overlooking the village below. They were few now, bruised and shaken, but still defiant. Kale, their leader, stood at the edge, scanning the horizon. His pride had been shattered, his certainty eroded, and yet he still clung to the one thing hunters never lost: determination. "They are not ordinary humans," Lyra whispered, her voice tight with fear and awe. "They are beyond anything we've faced." Kale gritted his teeth. "We survive, adapt, and strike. That's all we know. But tonight we find a way." Below, the humans waited, not hidden this time, but fully exposed, calm, and unafraid. Blue energy pulsed around them like liquid light, flowing and shifting with a life of its own. Their leader, the young man who had first faced Kale, stepped forward. His eyes met Kale's, unwavering, filled with a quiet confidence that chilled even the most fearless hunters. The hunters advanced, weapons ready. But this time, every move was met with a counter that went beyond defense. The humans no longer waited, they attacked strategically, using the environment and their energy as extensions of themselves. Trees bent to block the hunters, rocks rose and fell like shields, and roots snaked through the ground with perfect precision, dividing and isolating the hunters. Kale swung his weapon, cutting through roots and striking at the humans, but each attack seemed to fuel their energy, their blue aura growing brighter and stronger. Every blow that should have hurt them was absorbed, analyzed, and turned back against the hunters. Lyra shouted, "Leader, they're learning from us. Every move we make, they anticipate." Kale's mind raced. "Then we think differently. We fight unpredictably." But even unpredictability was met with human ingenuity. The humans had anticipated chaos. They moved in patterns Kale could not read, striking where he least expected, forcing the hunters into defensive positions, cornering them on the plateau. Then, the ground shook violently. Kale stumbled as a massive root surged from the earth, lifting one of his hunters high into the air. Another hunter was trapped between rocks that rose like walls, while a third struggled against invisible forces that pushed and pulled with immense strength. The hunters, so used to control and dominance, were now powerless. Kale realized the truth that had haunted him since their first encounter. These humans were not just defending, they were evolving in the fight. Every human acted as a single mind, connected to the planet itself, capable of anticipating every tactic, every strike, and every fear. Lyra gritted her teeth. "Leader, they are showing us what humanity really is." Kale's eyes burned with frustration. "Then we must survive long enough to understand them. Only then can we hope to strike back." The humans pressed their advantage. Blue energy flared, creating barriers, striking the hunters with precise force, and bending the battlefield to their will. The hunters fought with all their strength, but every strike was countered, every movement foreseen. Kale felt the crushing weight of power that no hunter had ever faced. One human stepped forward, eyes glowing brighter than ever. The ground pulsed with energy beneath her feet, and Kale realized it was not just her power, it was the power of the entire planet flowing through the humans. "You thought yourselves hunters," she said, her voice calm yet penetrating. "But you have never faced fear like this. You have never faced us." Kale lunged forward in desperation, swinging his weapon with all his might. The human raised her hand, and an invisible force slammed into him, knocking him to the ground. Pain, fear, and awe coursed through him all at once. For the first time in his life, Kale felt utterly powerless. Around him, the hunters struggled, trapped by roots, rocks, and invisible energy. They had fought countless battles, conquered countless worlds, but here, on this blue planet, all their experience counted for nothing. Kale rose slowly, his pride wounded but not broken. "We are hunters," he shouted. "We survive." The humans responded, not with violence, but with unity. They advanced as one, their energy pulsing in rhythm with the planet, creating a force that seemed unstoppable. The hunters were caught, lifted, thrown, and pinned, unable to fight back. Every move Kale made was anticipated, every tactic countered, until finally, he realized the undeniable truth. Humanity had not only defended itself, they had dominated. Lyra, beside him, whispered, awe in her voice. They are stronger than us. Smarter. Faster. We are the prey here." Kale's eyes swept across the plateau, seeing his team trapped and exhausted. He knew there was no escape, no victory, no chance of survival if they continued the fight. And yet, deep inside, a spark of respect, the first he had ever felt for another species, ignited. The humans stepped closer, forming a perfect circle around the hunters. Blue energy flowed like a river of light, pulsating with a life of its own. Kale felt the planet itself pressing down on him, not to kill, but to teach, to humble, and to remind him of a truth hunters rarely faced. Dominance alone does not define strength. You underestimated us, the human leader said calmly. You thought we would cower. You thought we would be easy prey. You were wrong. Kale lowered his weapon, his pride still intact but tempered by awe. For the first time, he saw humanity, not as fragile creatures, but as a species that could rise against any predator, any threat, and prevail through intelligence, unity, and resilience. The hunters, once the apex predators, understood the lesson the humans had taught them. They had come thinking to instill fear, to conquer and dominate, but it was fear they now felt. Not of death, but of humanity itself, a species that refused to be hunted. Kale turned to Lyra. We leave, he said quietly. For now. But we will return. She nodded, understanding. The hunters had survived, but they had been changed forever. Humanity had shown them a new truth. Courage, intelligence, and unity could overcome even the deadliest predators. As the hunters retreated, the humans watched silently, blue energy fading but their presence still commanding. The planet was alive, aware, and in perfect harmony with its defenders. The apex had shifted. Humanity had proven itself, not through weapons alone, but through spirit. And somewhere deep in the hearts of the hunters, a new fear had taken root. A fear they would carry across the stars. Humanity is not prey. Humanity is power. The forest fell silent once more, but the echoes of the battle lingered. Humanity had struck back. Humanity had won. And the galaxy would never look at hunters the same way again. The hunters had left the planet behind, their ship cutting silently through the night sky. Kale stared out the viewport, the blue glow of the planet fading in the distance. His pride, once unshakable, was fractured. For the first time, he felt uncertainty, fear, and respect, emotions he had never allowed himself to acknowledge. They were extraordinary, Lyra whispered, breaking the silence. We faced humans before, but this was different. Kale's jaw tightened. Different, yes. They adapted, learned, and struck back. They were nothing like we expected. We came as hunters, but we leave humbled. The hunters, usually silent and stoic, avoided each other's eyes. They had survived, but at a cost far greater than they would ever admit. Pride, certainty, and the illusion of control had been stripped away. Humanity had shown them something far more dangerous than strength or weapons. Courage, unity, and intelligence. Kale's mind raced. We underestimated them. That will not happen again. Back on the planet, the humans returned to their daily lives, but the echoes of the battle lingered. The village was calm, the blue energy now a quiet hum beneath the soil, a reminder that the planet was alive, aware, and protective. The humans had defended themselves, but they had also learned. Each encounter had strengthened their unity, their understanding of the hunters, and their bond with the planet itself. The young human leader, eyes still glowing faintly, looked up at the stars. They will return, he said softly, almost to himself. And when they do, we must be ready. Not just to defend, but to remind them what it means to face humanity. Kale's retreating ship cut through the void of space, but even in the distance, he could feel it, the lingering sense of unease that only humanity could inspire. Across countless worlds, hunters thrived on fear. But the humans of this planet were different. They had no fear, yet they inspired it. In the quiet of the hunter ship, Kale paced. They will not remain easy prey. They will grow. They will strike back against anyone who underestimates them. His voice was low, almost a warning, to himself, to his crew, to the galaxy. And when they do, we must be ready, or we will fall. Lyra watched him, her face pale but determined. Do you think humanity could become apex predators? Kale paused. Not predators. Something far more dangerous. A species that can survive anything. A species that learns faster than we can strike. They are evolution in motion, and we were blind to it. Below, the planet seemed to shimmer faintly, blue energy flowing like veins beneath the forests, rivers, and mountains. It was alive, watching, aware. The humans were no longer just defenders, they were part of the planet itself. And the hunters knew, deep in their bones, that this was just the beginning. In the following weeks, Kale's ship visited other systems, hunting, conquering, and observing, but everywhere he went, he could not forget the humans. Their strength, unity, and intelligence haunted him. No other species had ever struck fear into hunters, not through weapons, not through size, but through courage and ingenuity. Back on the planet, humanity thrived. Children laughed along the rivers, unaware of the hunters' retreat. Farmers tended their fields, unaware of the danger that had passed. But the humans who had fought remembered. They trained, they learned, and they prepared, for someday, hunters or worse might return. The night sky glittered with stars, silent witnesses to the unseen struggle. And somewhere, in the vast reaches of space, hunters whispered in fear and respect, humanity is not prey. Kale clenched his fists one final time before resting. We will return, he muttered. And next time, we will be ready. But humanity, they are not to be underestimated. The planet glowed softly below, alive, aware, and unyielding. Humanity had won, but more than that, they had proven something to the hunters, and to themselves. Strength alone does not make the apex predator. Intelligence, unity, courage, and the will to survive, these are what make a species unstoppable. And somewhere in the stars, the galaxy took notice. The humans had survived. They had thrived. And the hunters had learned the ultimate truth. Fear is a tool, but humanity inspires it. The story was over, for now.